On a world spinning its way to damnation, amid the fear and despair of the entire human race, who is left to fight for what is good and pure, and tell you how to get smashed for under a fiver? Yes, that's right. It's your 19th favorite Edmonton Oilers podcast, Handkerchief Dynasty. I am, as always, your secret professor, joined by my good friend and upcoming male model, High Priest of Oilers Magic. How are you, High Priest of Oilers Magic?
I'm okay.
We haven't recorded in a few days, so we've had a nice little mini streak here. It was like
Mini
the
what?
equivalent, a little mini strake, a little mini strake, which I think is going to be the an appetizer sensation that sweeps the nation very soon. Kind of like in the spirit of like sliders. You'll just have like a little like a long skinny plate of like mini strakes, with like maybe a couple. One has a peppercorn sauce, another one has this or that.
That's one of the best ideas you've ever had, my friend.
I think it's not bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like yeah. I have had kind of something similar to that, like Japanese barbecue, when you cook it on just like a flat plate and you just get these like, tiny bits of meat, and you grill them up, little bite-sized. So we beat Ottawa last game. We beat Calgary the game before that. It really, what a difference those games made. Both came from behind in both. It really did a lot to uplift my mood.
I mean, the Calgary game was a beauty, and it sort of played out like I thought it would. Like, it made the Toronto games look like the weird anomaly that they were. The Ottawa game, I mean, we beat Ottawa, but I hope that the takeaway from that game, I mean, we can't spot. There's one team in the entire division that we can spot a gimme goal in the first minute to, and that is the current incarnation of the Ottawa Senators. We can't do that with any other team and expect to get away with it and dominate like the Oilers did last night. So, we won that game. We looked really good, but that game should have been 3-1, 3-0. It was, I'm glad we beat the Ottawa Senators, because we were very close to not beating the Ottawa Senators. And truly, that Calgary game, if not for Mike Smith standing on his head in the first period where he faced 20 shots,
good point.
That's a different kettle of fish as well.
Oh, it's it's a different kettle of something else. It's like not even fish.
It's a totally different kettle. It's a kettle of fish here, and in this hand, a kettle of shellfish. Yeah, kettle.
No, but like putrefied shellfish. Yeah,
right.
I was actually thinking of like a fish sauce that was procured from some sort of like Roman archaeological dig or whatever, that people were just like, oh man, this is an amazing find for studying. And then one guy was just like, oh, I'll just eat this. No. I have a question for you though, because it's interesting how through all these swings, I mean, these aren't giant swings, but each season has its own little kind of swing to it. Mm-hmm. And I've been noticing that even when we go on a little streak, Tippett basically still has the attitude of like, we're a work in progress. And I was thinking about it just before we started recording, and I wanted to ask you about this because like, I wonder if like, what's your vibe in terms of like how Dave Tippett feels about coaching and how coaching should be done? Because I have a theory that one of the reasons why he took a break from coaching for those several years was because he was a little burnt out, because his standards are super, super high. Like, he's got super high old school standards. He's got his own level of like his idea of like how things should be done. It's like, but he does his best to implement things that way. He's not a psycho. He's not a psycho Hoseby. So it's not as though it's a psycho trying to like make people do psycho stuff. It's like, he's just got extremely high standards. The way I view it is like, I imagine you had a contractor, or like, let's say like your great uncle worked on houses his whole life, and every house he ever built, he was always like really high standards, very cordial with the client, upfront about everything, above board the whole way, No one ever had a bad word to say about him, but he had very, very high standards. And you just could tell that just by nature of that, it put a bit of a strain on him, because the rest of the world is just like, whatever, we'll just make it out of sawdust and whatnot. Whereas he's just like high standards. And then after a while, you just get burnt out on requiring high standards of people and coming in every day hard hat and pail to like do the work requisite to like make that happen without just being a fucking total psycho,
Totally. I think you're onto something there, because I think in Dallas and Arizona, he was very much that guy, right? But with those teams, I think there was a plateau to those teams where they could sort of get there, and then they didn't have the personnel to take the next big step. And with the Oilers, he's able to get them there to that plateau, to the Tippett level of contracting excellence.
Yeah.
And then, bring in like an interior designer and kind of have some control and maybe go antiquing, like finish the job, right?
That's true, actually, because he had retired a few years ago because he was just so fed up because he's like, you know what? Like, I've worked hard, I've had a good career, it's time to move on. Besides, I'm just a little fed up with like people just like not having the same standards as me. And, I believe things should be done a certain way, which is the right way. And there's a right way and a wrong way. And,
yes.
It's just time for me to take a step back, and refresh myself. But like now he's like, he's back in the thick of it. You're right. He's building the dream house. He finally has the budget. He, the client's totally on board. The neighbors are on board. Everyone's cheering him on. But he's also still in his own head, living on this separate reality where his standards are really high.
I don't know about that.
And he doesn't try and achieve them by being a psycho, because he's a good person. You can tell, right? It's not as though he is going to like. It's gentle work, though.
The last two games, his messaging post game has been much more complete effort. Like, he's been happy with the whole effort of the team, and it's been less of a. It seems to be trending now towards, and that's kind of where you want to be in this. I mean, if you're a good team, there reaches a point in the season where after the game, no matter what your record is, you don't want to be saying things like, "Oh, we're still a work in process." Like, to be a good team and kind of carry good tasting juice with you into the playoffs, you want to have reached a point where like, our game is where we want it to be. And the last couple games, I noticed that his messaging in the post-game conferences was much more that than there's still segments of our game we have to work on. And they have been, they've shown a lot of grit in those past two games. That they didn't get the start in either of those games that I think they would have liked, but I think that is much more to the. I think that has much more to do with Mikko let in an absolutely horrendous goal last night, and I think in that Calgary game, Calgary came up. They were high off Daryl Sutter, right? They were high off what was going to happen with that when that
they had fresh Sutter ground up. Then they snorted it. It's like that shit's more powerful than heroin, man. 100% pure Sutter. Are you kidding me? That's the raw, right off the boat, the Sutter. Can I tell you one thing though? Can I tell you one thing? Thank God we're gonna have some great quotes coming out of the Calgary dressing room for the next few years, because I fucking love the way that guy talks in press conferences. I kind of love him, to be honest. He's a great coach. He's our nemesis. He's one of our nemesises or nemesi, obviously. So I can't like him too much. But just for a post-game quote, he's always been one of my favorite coaches.
I don't know how well. When did he last coach? Like years ago, right?
Years ago,
a lot. Yeah. I think a lot.
He's kind of in the same mode as a Tippett, where he's the contractor. Like they saw that we had contractor guy, and they were like, "Oh, we need old school contractor guy to come out of retirement for us too." It's like, what's he doing? He's down on the ranch. He's like the rancher contractor guy who like builds like whatever structures are required to like raise cattle.
But I think Dave Tippett is a much more progressive coach than Daryl Sutter. I think he's more open to new ways of doing things and kind of growth as a human being. Whereas Daryl Sutter is much more troglodyte-like and set in his ways. And we'll see. I think hockey culture might have changed too much for him to. It's one thing for Milan Lucic to say, buckle up, but it's a totally different thing for that sort of culture to survive and thrive in the world that we live in today, which isn't, 2004. Like it's come a long way. But on the other hand, this is a very short season. And like you said, ground up 100% pure Daryl Sutter. I mean, that's the high
It's like
of
PCP,
highs, right?
Yeah.
So it's a quick, powerful, like, so it might be enough. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like in a short season like this, it might be enough to carry them through. I'm not sure how sustainable that high is. I'm not sure how long it will last, but I mean, we'll see. You're right. I'm glad he's back in the league just because he's such a character. He's a caricature almost of a hockey man. So I'm glad he's back. But I like I said, in summation, I think that the past couple games, the Oilers have shown a lot, and they haven't really gotten away from the game that they were playing before the Toronto series. Their game was against Calgary and Ottawa, to me, looked, basically right back to how they were playing before that weird Toronto series, which has looked more and more, the farther we go from it, has looked more and more just like some sort of weird blip where our guys were snake.
Toronto's cooled off too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Toronto finished that off and they got smoked by the Canucks. You know what I mean? And in the post-game, one of the post-games, I can't remember who said, I think it was their coach, but he said that nothing went their way. You know what I mean? Like, it's hockey gods. Sometimes they're smiling down on you. Sometimes they're not. And they're very fickle. And I think we got the wrong end of that stick during those 3 games. I'm glad we didn't panic. I'm glad we went back to what was working, with the exception of
the super line,
this crazy first line, which it's almost less like, I wonder how much of I don't think that had anything to do with the Toronto series, quite frankly. I think that the Oilers and Puljujarvi have reached a point where it's become a viable option to throw him and Nuge on a second line and call it a day. You know what I mean? And slide in, figure out who works in that other spot.
Yeah, you could have a point there. Yeah.
Because, I mean, Pooley, and last night, I mean, that line looked good last night. Like, Nuge is getting his chances. I mean, talk about snake bit. Like, that guy, it's just not happening for him right now. It's not like he's not getting chances. They're just not going in. I'd like to see him get his shot away a little bit quicker. Ever since he got that wrist injury, I think he's never quite got his shot back in terms of its release to where it was, because he used to have
he scored some nice goals this year, but
he's
not
got
in the quantity you want. I mean, I think do we know what kind of injury he's potentially been fighting, if anything? Is there any?
No, but I mean, there was that injury last year, right? There was like a wrist. He had that wrist injury, and I mean, that's a significant injury. If you're a guy whose scoring threat is based around kind of deception with your shot and a quick release, I mean, it's the last thing you want to go wrong is your wrist. That's where it comes.
Oh yeah,
from,
no,
right?
he's a guy for like where the wrist injury. I mean, remember Yamo had that wrist injury.
Yeah, but
Everlay's a wrist injury guy.
Yes.
But it took Yamo a long time to come back from that. But when he did, that's actually right before. So maybe there's when we have a wrist injury, it's like hell for 8 months. But like once it regrows, it's stronger, and you just become like you have a +1 on your shooting.
Yeah, maybe.
Stat or something.
I mean, Yamo's game was never that game either. I mean, Yamo was always a
blood and guts guy.
First and foremost.
Well, but hold on. But I mean, look at that deflection goal last night. That was like the deflection. I mean, it boggles the mind, the skill level on that goal. Like, that's sick.
But he was also in the position to make that deflection, right? Like, he was in the area of the rink where you have to be to put that in, and not every guy will go there. And also, I mean, Nuge hasn't looked. I'd love for Nuge to put up more numbers, but he certainly hasn't been something that I feel like he's hurting the team. He doesn't make a second line weaker. I think having a second line with Nuge and Yessi together is only going to improve the team.
Here's the analogy.
And the first line, like, good luck with that.
Yeah, this is the thing. The first line,
that was nuts.
The first line is so sexy, and we're in a shortened season, so I'm all for breaking out the nuclear option. Like I feel that with the way I feel about that line is the way I felt about Super Mario World when it first launched with the Super Nintendo, and you were like, okay, this is pure happiness. This is joy as an end unto itself. I'm just gonna bask in its glow, and then yeah, you want one other game to put in the console, and the other game could be whatever. Yeah, give me Pilot Wings. I don't care. So like the Nuge line is the Pilot Wings, where it's like that's still a great game. That's fine.
Great game.
I love Pilot Wings was amazing, but Super Mario World was just like days of just like grandeur. Just the luxury of playing that game when it came out is like the luxury of this line. And we only have like fucking like 20 games left. Like let's go for it. We got the star. Let's just run through this level.
You know what? Yeah, I absolutely agree. I say we stick with this line. I mean, we have 20 games left in the regular season, and then best case scenario, another, or worst case scenario, worst/best case scenario, another 28 games till the mountaintop, right? And I think, I mean, there's no real reason that we need to, you know what I mean? Like we've got Connie and Dry and Yamo, like it's happened. You know what I mean? There's no sense to rein in that power now and be like, yeah, we're gonna walk away from that. I think this line could stay together
for a while. I mean, we're at that stage in the season where it's prepare for landing time. It's like you're playing the NES version of Top Gun.
Yes.
You get through the first part of the level, you get to the end, you have to land on the carrier, which is really tricky. You need to slow your speed, you need to pick everything very carefully. You're changing your calibrations. It's like whatever lines we have rolling at the end of the season is going to be what we go into the playoffs with, right? So
hopefully
we're going to be trying stuff with the end of coming into that tricky landing. So if this line gets rolling, yes, this will be the line in the playoffs. But if this line doesn't roll for the next few weeks, they're going to try and find some lines that do, because you need this. You only have a little bit more runway left to figure it out before the postseason.
Yes, but Secret Professor, I don't really see any possible way how the first line could do anything but roll.
That's kind of
what I mean.
Yeah, you might have something there. You definitely have something there.
I think so.
For there's magic. Yeah. It's I'm hoping we can I mean, fuck, like seriously, I've gone back to just feeling sorry for the players on the other team now that Connie and Leon are together on the ice, like, and Yamo is such a great addition to that line too. I've loved his work, I
mean, it took a 60-minute game to do it last night, though. I mean, yeah. What do you think? Who starts the next game? Who would you start the next game?
I mean, it's going to be Smith,
answer,
right?
You think so? You know what? I would start Mikko that next game. I think the name of the game is to at least get Mikko rolling, to get him going. You know what I mean? Whether or not this becomes a tandem situation, I don't think at this point it will become a tandem situation. I think Mike Smith
him rolling. We're giving him at bats.
Yeah, we're giving him at bats when the team is playing well and when the opponent is the worst team in the division.
Right.
I think maybe let Mikko take the next game and then give Smith. It's a 3-game series, right? We're playing Ottawa 3 times.
Yeah, you know what? Especially because it's possible something.
Take the last game.
I think I mean, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing for him to have a little bit of rest too, for like if he's tweaked anything and whatnot. Because that's always
Mike Smith is fine. That man does not need rest. He's not one of these.
It's not about rest. I'm just saying, like you're saying, if it's against this really weak competition, that's who you play your backup against. That's what's done.
Yes,
there's a reason that's done. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you think of Mr. Kyle Turris? Do you think, even though he fucked up when we first gave him the dog and he let it run rampant and piss and shit everywhere, and it was a complete catastrophe, he did take it on walks 3 days in a row recently, so he might be worthy of the responsibility of that, of taking care of that animal.
Yeah, I think
being in the Oilers lineup.
I think last night was probably his best game as an Oiler, but I'm not willing to just let Kyle Turris borrow the car keys whenever he wants, because he certainly hasn't been that player for the majority of the season. So I'd like to see a couple more games like that before I really start to feel like he's kind of found his spot on this team. hearing from him, it sounds like, I mean, when you hear a guy who plays a game like that, and then after the game, their comments are full of self-awareness of where their game was at and an acknowledgement of how they haven't been what they've wanted to be, instead of just, I mean, his post-game comments were almost more of that than, praising himself for his game, which is exactly what you want to see from a player that's kind of not performed up to their expectations. But I want to see it for a few more games. You know what I mean? Because I think he was so not at all. He was just so not what we were expecting for the majority of this season. That I want to see. I want to see it sustained over a few more games. But he sure looked great last night. Maybe it was that. I mean, he got that hit in that Calgary game. Did you see that hit? When he got absolutely, I mean, I think that was the hardest an Oiler has been hit this season. And that almost seemed to snap him out of it.
Yeah.
It's like when you hit the VCR, like he got Fonzied.
Right.
You know?
Don't try that at home, kids. That's very unsafe. I also want to ask you, like, how much are you liking straight no chaser right now? Because he is just he's playing those pearly black and whites just like a maestro, you know.
Well,
I love that goal. That he played that 2-on-1 so well. Like, it was just like, oh wow.
It was I mean, we often talk about like the ESPN goal. That was a perfect example of it, when the goalie, it was even like Decord even made like the standard ESPN goalie movement to try to stop
Sports?
that. EA Sports,
EA Sports, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
I mean, yeah. But Decord even made like the typical like kind of he went into like goalie position. Yeah. And it just like it wasn't even close. Yeah, he got locked up.
Just because he like literally didn't have the frames in his animation to do anything about it. Yeah.
And
he froze him. Yeah.
We froze him up. And Chaser, he didn't have enough frames. Yeah. He didn't have enough frames. And I mean, trap. Chaser is so dependable in his own end, you know. So when he's feeling it, and he seems to be feeling it, I mean, and he's shooting. I love that he's such a shoot first guy. And I love Alex Jason. I think he's I wish almost we had a couple more of those guys on the team, but I'm glad we have at least one, and I'm glad it's Alex Jason. I think he brings a lot to the room. I imagine
having him in a playoff run right now would be important, because he's the motherfucker. I mean, you know, maybe he's not the fastest skater in the world, but like he plays, he's gritty, he's mouthy, he's just involved. He can get involved in the game in multiple ways. He plays in your bottom six, and he's a good special teams player on the power play. So
what more do you want?
Like, we gotta, honestly, if we don't re-sign him at the end of this contract, I'll be really disappointed, because he's a support player that I want to see continue in this team. I mean, I know a lot of people are basically consider him expendable, and that's all fine and good. And yes, maybe on some level he is. But I think he's great in the room too. I think guys like playing with him.
I mean, what happened when the Oilers got rid of Matt? Yeah, when the Oilers got rid of Matt Hendricks, what did we hear about for like 2 years, right? How we should have never got rid of Matt Hendricks, how we should have locked that guy up. So, I mean, I think he's expendable to the fan base that is constantly looking towards getting young talent into the lineup, but I don't necessarily think that's like a realistic way to build a winning hockey team.
Yeah. Okay, so what else you got for the young children this fine day, High Priest of Voice Magic? Any admonishments? Can you comment perhaps on these shocking revelations in the Meghan and Harry Oprah interview?
I mean,
I'm shocked to find out that the British royal family are racist as fuck. Oh, wow.
Yeah, really? That's. I woke up that morning. I haven't watched this thing because.
You should.
I don't think I should, because like what am I like? I'm pretty right now. I haven't watched this thing right now, as of right now.
Do you want to
And
understand what like 80% of stories on the BBC are pertaining to? So it's just like,
no, I
if
mean,
I
not
wasn't a
really. Like
BBC
these
guy, it would be
people,
hard.
it's an absolute travesty that the royal family is allowed to exist in the 21st century. As far as
Absolutely.
I'm concerned.
Exactly.
But I
Exactly.
thought that
Yeah.
I've been thinking that for like the past 38 years. Like every time I see them, it's like my brain is just like reeling, and it's like, wow, this really shouldn't exist. Isn't this ridiculous? My brain says to me. And I say to my brain, yes, it certainly is. This brain is one of the most ridiculous things we've both ever seen. So, I mean, I think I'll probably spend the time it would take to watch Oprah interview these two people that left the ridiculousness and are now, along with me, being like, boy, it sure is ridiculous. I'm probably going to use that time to watch X-Men, the animated series.
Oh, that's a great
something
choice.
like that. Something
I will
like
say,
that.
I will say, I just found out Piers Morgan lost his job on the morning show he was doing in the UK based on his comments, which is fucking awesome because Piers Morgan, okay, sir, Piers Morgan, you are a right cunt, okay? You are literally like one of the worst people I've ever heard about or encountered
So
in like
I'm
the media
glad.
sphere. So bye, Piers Morgan.
I'm happy that people are waking up and smelling the coffee. But I mean, if you seriously thought that like the royal family and any of that had any business existing in this world, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm glad Oprah straightened you out.
Yeah.
A little worrisome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, better late than never, I suppose. You know, now that I have a 720p camera, I definitely need to shave before these meetings.
Oh, you look fine.
Also, I had a great idea for our marketing strategy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start every episode buttoning up our clothes. That's gonna be like our intro. Okay. So every episode is gonna be us going like this. And then that way everyone is gonna wonder what the fuck is going on with these guys. You know what I mean? And it'll be really noticeable in the first like 8 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a good idea.
Are you down? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, we're gonna start that starting next episode. That's the new Handkerchief Dynasty podcast marketing growth strategy.
What do you think? Cassian was on the ice today, so he's coming back. Where do you think he fits in?
Hard to say, but like good problem to have, you know. Tough to find a good spot for a good player. I mean, I still, as far as I'm concerned, like Cassian has been disappointing for a long time now. We've gone over it a bit, so like I don't really like even think about it that much where Cassian is going to come back in, but there'll be a spot for him on the bare minimum on one of the bottom 2 lines.
Well, so, what do you think about?
And we want him in the playoffs. We need that crazy ball of insane rage in the playoffs.
Yeah, here's the thing. That's exactly it. We've thought about him. I'd say we thought about him in equal measures, both too much and not enough, because you start thinking about where he's going to fit in. And I mean, does he play on a line with Jujar in the playoffs? Is it Jujar Cassian line?
That could be a good line.
Yeah. That sounds pretty sweet to me. And it's not lost. It's not going to be lost on Zach Cassian. Both how the fan base, he knows he hasn't been himself, and he injured himself in Donnybrook, right? Like he was in a scrap. That's what happened. That's what led to his absence. So he was trying to rekindle that part of his game, his whole reason for being. That's what led to,
his raison d'etre.
Yeah. Well done. I was just avoiding it out of I was very insecure.
Respect? No,
not respect.
I had this idea when I was talking to someone about how I one day hope to have a job that pays me commensurate with my ability to use the word commensurate. I wanted to ask you. Can you verify your bona fides by explaining the term bona fides to me really quick before we continue this conversation? Because if you can't explain bona fides
is like my legitimacy as a high priest.
Fair enough. Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
I mean, Cassian's going to come back into the lineup, I think, I feel as though he thinks, and he was at the point in the season and in his game where he had realized at that point that he had to get back to where he was at. So I'm not expecting to see, and this might be rose tinted glasses, but I'm not expecting to see a Cassian that's closer to what we've been seeing. I'm expecting to see a Cassian that is the Cassian that left in the seconds before that scrap happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which could be, I mean, that's a huge, if that's what comes back into the lineup, that's something. That's something.
What we need Cassian's daughter to be old enough to tell him, go kick his ass, Dad. What's like the minimum age that he could like egg him on, that she could egg him on to like motivate his acts of let's say violence adjacent activity?
Yeah, I would say like 6 or 7. 6 or 7.
That's a ways off.
Yeah, it is a ways off.
Maybe we can just teach her to make a fist. Maybe we can just teach her to make a fist. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, what do you think I should do tonight, honey? And she's just like,
yeah.
Because honestly,
I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back.
We'll see. We'll see.
I say all that, and then I think about that stupid thing he made where he was like, "Go Flames, go," and it really bothers me.
Well, like,
but maybe he's just like above all this trivial regionality bullshit. You know what I mean? He doesn't give a fuck. He's like a mercenary.
I don't know. I don't know about that. All right. So why don't we leave it there? Let's start the wind down procedure. I've got to exit the spaceship soon. Otherwise, I will be jettisoned along with all my possessions out into the vacuum and the void of space, which is not really on my to-do list for today. Yeah. So we've got some good guests coming up. Everything is going well and according to plan. I would appreciate it if, in spite of the fact that everyone listening to this has access to hours upon hours of free Oilers content every day from TSN 1260, 630 Ched and various podcasts, please do visit us at patreon.com/Handkerchief Dynasty, because we will stop doing this podcast if more people don't sign up. Just because, you know, if you organize a big party with gallons of guacamole and you get 2 people, ultimately it kind of embitters you and you decide, hey, you know what? I'm not going to make the 19th best Edmonton Oilers podcast anymore.
Wow.
I'm going to move on to my full-time love of Fireball Island. Okay. Which is my true love, my true calling. It's like being, you know, they say some sailors are married to the sea. I'm kind of like married to Fireball Island a little bit. Let me think here.
I don't think we could ever stop doing this.
No, you're doing the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, we need to. I mean, we should do. What was it in UHF? There's like the used car salesman who's like threatens to club seals if people don't come down and buy cars. He's like, "That's right, I'm clubbing a seal to make a better deal."
National Lampoons have that cover too. Buy this magazine or we'll kill this dog.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, but we just need to do something along those lines. Plus, I think the buttoning up shirt thing will be like a really big deal. Because I think literally everyone will be like, the chances of us going viral and people just being like, are they doing something before every episode? we need to get someone when a montage shows up of like, this podcast starts every episode by putting their clothes on. What is going on?
The montage is crucial to success. Supercut.
We'll make it. We should just make it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you should make it.
Obviously, that's what I mean. Everyone listening, please do not tell anybody. This is our top secret plan. I think there's only about 40 of us, so don't tell your wives, you know, don't tell your girlfriends, don't tell the voices in your head. Just keep it completely buttoned down. Be much appreciated. Okay, well, otherwise, we'll catch you all on Twitter at HandkerchiefDY1, and High Priest of Oilers Magic is at High Priest Oil. And we will check in after the next game. And we may even have a special guest here or there. So thank you for taking the time to speak, High Priest. I'll let you return to your duties, sacramental, ornamental, crematorial, and otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
See you later, everybody.